good afternoon, Eagle's Nest. I want to share a passage that you might be familiar with, Hebrews 11 in the New Testament, that is generally referred to as our heroes of the faith. It says in verse 1, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see." And there's a couple words in that first verse that kind of stand out. Confidence, first of all. Do we have a confidence in what we believe, what our Bible teaches us, and what we profess with our mouths? That confidence comes from deeply rooted faith. Oftentimes we have to exercise our spiritual muscles to be able to grow that faith. We have to read the Word and understand what God says. It's kind of like my friend John McTernan often says, when you're looking at counterfeit money, you don't study all the different hundreds of types of counterfeit money. You study the one correct item. That way you can kind of get to know it, and then everything else is false around it. Same thing's true with the Bible. The more we study it, the more we understand who God is, the things that He would or wouldn't say, and we learn more and more about His mannerisms, thought processes, and so forth. It says in this passage, there were several people that it points out, Cain and Abel, the sons of Adam and Eve. And we figure out very quickly that Abel followed what God wanted, Cain didn't, and Cain becomes the first murderer of the Bible. But it was credited to Abel as having faith. Enoch is another person listed in this row. Talks about him because he had such a strong faith, and his walk with the Lord was so strong that the Bible says he just one day disappeared. One day he wasn't there, and it's because God took him to heaven without experiencing death. Noah, a more familiar story maybe. Noah lived in a time period where there had never been rain before, and he was told by God very clearly to build the world's biggest boat, the ark, and put animals on it and save his family's life. This wasn't something like, when we read it sometimes we think, 6 months or 8, 9. This was years and years and years of following God's very detailed perspective on how to build this thing, all the while being mocked and ridiculed by people who are like, "What are you doing, you crazy old man?" Imagine, it hadn't rained before, so how in the world was the whole world going to be covered with water from the rains when no one even really knew what rain was? That took a measure of faith credited to Noah. And then we look at someone like Abraham. Abraham struggled to have a child with his wife Sarah, and for years and years, decades, they couldn't have a child. They're finally blessed with one in Isaac, and God tells him very clearly, "Hey, I want you to sacrifice your son back to me. Yes, he was a gift to you, but now I want him back." And Abraham had to make the decision to follow through with that. So as you know, the story unfolds, he goes to the mountain and he puts his son on the altar, and just before he plunges the knife into his own son, God stops his hand. God never intended for him to kill his son, but he wanted to know Abraham's heart was that he was going to follow God and do what he said, no matter what. Remarkable stories listed one after the other of how each one of these individuals displayed their faith, not just by their mouth, but by their action. So my question is, what is God calling you to do? What is God calling me to do? What is He asking of us to lay down of ourselves? What is it that we're doubting? What is it that we don't believe He can get done? And we need to help Him with it. The Bible encourages us to ask for an increased measure of faith when we need it. So friends, I encourage you today, faith requires action. Faith requires us to show and demonstrate that what we say with our mouth is what we actually do. That's an encouraging word today. Hopefully, I pray that it speaks to you as it did me. I'll talk to you soon, Eagle's Nest. Take care.